Greetings, everyone. We're at episode 44, and I am going to do my first Bachman Turner Overdrive, or BTO, misheard lyric. And the misheard lyric is bacon carrot biscuits every day, where the correct lyrics is taking care of business. And for those of you who are Patreon members who pay a little extra a month, you can also see a video of myself and my trusty little puppy Leon behind me in this video. So please find us at Patreon at Misheard Songs. We'd love to have you, and anything you give will help support us do this podcast forever and ever, I'm hoping. We are at, again, episode 44. All right, so let's talk about Bachman Turner Overdrive's Taking Care of Business, or as I would sing it, Bacon Carrot Biscuits. Obviously, I was a child that loved my food. And it is a song written by Randy Bachman and first recorded by a Canadian rock group, as I call it, Bachman Turner Overdrive, or BTO, from their 1973 album called Bachman Turner Overdrive 2. And a little bit about Randy Bachman, or as he was formerly known as Randolph Charles Bachman when he was born. He was born on September 27th, 1943, which in my calculation will make him 77 this September. He's Canadian. He's a musician. He's a lead guitarist, songwriter, and founding member of another classic rock band before BTO called The Guess Who. Not The Who, but The Guess Who, which eventually turned into Bachman Turner Overdrive. And a little bit about The Guess Who. The Guess Who released three successful albums over the next 2 years, Wheatfield Soul in 1969 and Canned Wheat. There's a theme here in 1969. And I did not know this, in 1970 released American Woman. American Woman, get away from me. Wow, which brought them mainstream attention, obviously. And years later, it was redone by Lenny Kravitz, and that's how I heard about American Woman. Bachman actually wrote and co-wrote most of that song with the group's other partner, a gentleman by the name of Cummings, during the song period. So he himself, Mr. Randy Bachman, was inducted into the Musicians Hall of Fame and Museum in 2016. And he was first married. Here's the first did you know, because I knew there was a connection to this gentleman, but I wasn't sure how. His first marriage was to a lady by the name of Lorraine Stevenson. They were married from 1966 to 1977. With Lorraine, he had 6 children, and one of his children is his son named Tal Bachman. Does that name ring a bell? It does to me. He's known for his one-hit wonder back in 1999, so 21 years ago already. Wow, it hit the top 20 with She's So High. There you go. And then his daughter, Lorelei Bachman, is also a writer and musician, but it's Tal that I know. And then later on, he married another lady after his divorce from their mom, Lorraine, to Lorelei. He loves the L's, I've noticed that. Oh, sorry, no, I'm getting confused. Lorelei's his daughter. He married a gal by the name of Denise McCann from 1982 to 2011, and they had 1 child. So altogether, he has 7 children throughout his 2 marriages, and from that, 26 grandchildren, 4 great-grandchildren. And he is also part of a member of the Canadian charity called Artists Against Racism, so that's pretty cool. So let's talk a little about Bachman Turner Overdrive. I alluded to it earlier that it was kind of another group from the original group that Randy Bachman put together from the group, The Guess Who. And it was often abbreviated as BTO. That's how I know it. Of course, it's Canadian rock from Winnipeg, Manitoba. Hello, everyone from there, if you're listening, who had a series of hit albums and singles in the 1970s and sold over 7 million albums in that decade alone. So remember, people had to physically go to the store, drive, ride their bike, take a bus to get the album. They just couldn't just download it on their phone as we do today. I tell you what, we had it hard, didn't we? And then their 1970s catalog included about 5 top 40 albums and 6 U.S. top 40 singles, 11 in Canada. So big both in Canada and the U.S. The band itself has sold nearly 30 million albums worldwide, and really hardcore BTO fans are known as gearheads, which I didn't know that because when you look at the band's logo, it's a gear. So that's why they're called gearheads. Many of their songs include songs like Let It Ride, You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, I know that one, Takin Care of Business, or in this case, Bacon Carrot Biscuits, Hey You, and Roll On Down the Highway. And they are still being played by a lot of rock stations, both extraterrestrial and regular radio, so still around. And what happened was Randy Bachman was in another band called The Guess Who, and then moved over and started his own band, which included a lineup of himself and his other brothers. So that's the Bachman part. And so Randy was, of course, the lead guitar, lead vocals, and a lot of the music writing. Fred Turner was the T of the BTO. He did bass, guitar, and lead vocals. And then Randy's brothers is a Tim Bachman, guitar and vocals, who's the middle brother, and Robbie Bachman, who did drums. And he was, of course, the youngest brother of both Randy and Tim. And this lineup released about 2 albums in 1973. The second and most commercially successful lineup featured Blair Thornton in lead guitar in place of Tim Bachman. So around that time, the middle Bachman brother left. And from when I did some research, he's not even in the industry anymore. He dabbled in real estate and what have you, so totally left the scene. So they had him replaced by Blair Thornton. And with this new lineup, this lineup released about 4 albums between 1974 and 1977, so roughly about an album a year, including 2 that reached the top 5 in the U.S. pop charts, as well as the band's only U.S. #1 single. I didn't realize that. I thought Taking Care of Business was, but it's not. It's You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet was the only #1 single. And then all the other songs had some moderate success, but not as big as You Ain't Seen Nothing Yet, and of course, Taking Care of Business. Some more did you knows. So when the Guess Who eventually became BTO, they had, of course, sold their wares back then. They didn't have all this digital download. You can do your own thing on YouTube. You had to pound the pavement essentially to find a company that would, sign you. And so they apparently had rejections of over 20 plus record companies that were like, no, thanks, but no thanks. And finally were signed by Mercury Records. And what the story was, the band again eventually landed a deal with Mercury Records, which Randy Bachman proclaimed was actually a pure stroke of luck, because back in April of 1973, a gentleman by the name of Charlie Foch of Mercury Records returned to his office after a trip to France to find a stack of all these unplayed demo tapes. So imagine all the tapes, and cassette tapes. And he wanted something completely fresh, and he took a trash can and slid all the tapes in. And one did not fall in. So that is the universe. When he picked it up, he noticed it was Bachman's name on it. He remembered talking to Randy Bachman the previous year and told him, hey, if you ever put a demo tape together, send it in. Luckily, that thing did not fall into the trash can, because it would have never happened. So the story goes, this Mercury exec had lost Uriah Heep. I don't know who that is, but I do know Rod Stewart to other labels. So he was like, I need to find a new rock act to replace them. And that's when he found them after listening to that tape and remembering the conversation he had with Randy. So they signed him. And it's, again, very important for them, because back then you have to get assigned by a big record label company to make any music and then have it listened to and played at different radio stations. So then the question is, now they've been signed, they're with Mercury Records. We know who the original lineup was, which is essentially the 3 Bachman brothers and this Turner dude, which makes the Turner part. How do they get the name? Because it's a very unique name. So the name is a combination, of course, of the last names and then the word overdrive. So, of course, you have the Bachman from the last name of the brothers and Turner for the one guy. And the story was Overdrive. I don't know if it's still around, but it's a trucker magazine. 10-4, good buddy. And the legend has it that both Randy and Frank Turner were sitting around a table at a restaurant, truck stop, actually, chain in Canada called Husky Restaurant. Yep. And they were trying to think of a name for the band. So Randy was reading the magazine and said his joke, we should just name ourselves Overdrive, which would have worked too. And so when they kind of played around with it, they're like, wait a minute, let's go ahead, maybe Bachman Turner Overdrive. So at this point, that demo tape was still being called, Brave Belt 3. And then each band member decided, you know what, we need to do like famous surname bands are doing at that time. It was Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And so that's when they said, you know what, let's go ahead and put our names together, add that trucker magazine, because we're at a truck stop overdrive, and the rest is history. And that's how it became BTO, or AKA Bachman Turner Overdrive. So there you go. The other thing that I did not know was back in 1986, they actually opened up for Van Halen on an 11th month tour. So that would have been a great lineup. You have BTO to open it and then Van Halen. And this was the first time Van Halen went out with their new lead singer, Sammy Hagar. So this is the Hagar years. And they wanted BTO to do their hits that everyone knows to get the crowd fire up. So when Van Halen would take the stage later, they wouldn't have time to think that, oh no, Diamond Dave isn't there. It's now Sammy Hagar. So it worked out for everyone, especially as BTO. So a little bit more about the actual song that we're talking about, Taking Care of Business. It was, of course, developed by Randy Bachman, and it was when he kind of started writing it when he was in that band, The Guess Who. And the idea of the song was he was writing about a recording technician. So a lot of these, that mostly men at the time, who worked on the Guess Who's recordings, and this particular technician would take the 8:15 train to get to work, inspiring the lyrics, take the 8:15 to the city. So that's in the song. In the early arrangement in the song, it was first called, before it was called Taking Care of Business, White Collar Worker. White Collar Worker. Maybe, could have worked. In the chorus riff and vocal melody were similar to the Beatles' Paperback Writer. So when he wrote it and played it to his other bandmate at the time, Burton Cummings, when he was still with the Guess Who, and remember, not the Who, Cummings had said, oh, I don't know about this. It's pretty close to the Beatles and they might sue us. Although Mr. Bachman, still felt that the riff and the verses were good, he was like, we're going to do it. And even though it got to the chorus where everyone hated it, he kept trying on. And the story was Bachman was driving to Vancouver, British Columbia for a gig. And when he was listening to the radio, when he heard the local DJ Daryl B's catchphrase, we're taking care of business, lead vocalist Fred Turner's voice gave out before the band played that set, the same song. And when he sang that, from changing it to White Collar Worker to Taking Care of Business, inserting the chorus, that's when people were getting excited. So like, I guess we're changing it. And so what they said here, recalled by Randy Bachman, quote unquote, when we finished, what did he say here? When we finished the song that night, people kept clapping, stomping, and shouting, taking care of business, over and over, as I would say, taking care of biscuits. And so when he picked up the tempo again and reprised the song for another 10 minutes afterwards, we all knew we had something, quote unquote. So after he rewrote the lyrics to White Collar Worker with a new chorus and titled Taking Care of Business, along with this, he wrote a revised guitar riff, which was, for the guitar folks, 1-7-4 progression played with a shuffle, whatever that means. Bachman says that he handed them lyrics to Fred Turner with the thought that Turner would sing the lead vocal, but Turner had in the back saying Randy should sing the lead. It was give himself a needed vocal break when the band performed live. How ironic. So it would have been a Turner song for him to sing, but gave it back to Randy, who wrote it, which he got known for it. Again, the song was recorded by BTO in the late 73 and their second album on Bachman Turner Overdrive. It reached number 12 on the U.S. Billboard Hot 100 on August 10th, 1974. My little baby brother was already born. Number 6 on the Cashbox Top 100, and number 3 on the Canadian RPM charts, and would become one of BTO's most endearing and well-known songs. Taking Care of Business spent 20 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100, longer than any other single of theirs. So again, it wasn't the number one single in U.S., but it was the longest running for them. And then in 2011, Bachman said it was the most licensed song in Sony Music's publishing catalog. It is often referred to as the provincial rock song of Manitoba, which is where they're from. And Bachman himself uses the song as the theme song for his current CBC radio weekly music show, Vinyl Tap. So there you go. It's not about food, although I love food. For those of you who don't know, I love it. My little puppies totally sleep behind me. So those of you that are on Patreon would see this video. It also is fun. It gets people clapping and stomping, exactly. And it's, well known. I've seen it in many commercials as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if I start seeing it in food commercials. But a little bit more you know about BTO, how they came about, and who this Randy Bachman is. And wow, all his children and Tal Bachman. So excited to talk more about our next episode, episode 45. We're getting close to our 1 year mark. And just want to say thank you again to all the fans. Take care out there, and please keep sending all your good misheard songs and keep singing them wrong. And keep singing them wrong. Bye.